Hi, I'm Shashank Bhargava, and you're listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. In this episode, we talk about the government announcing the minimum support price for summer crops. We also talk about the recurring thefts happening in government schools across Punjab.
They take away everything, right from food grains of the midday meal to gas cylinders to tables to chairs. They take away everything.
But first, we talk about Maharashtra. For the past 3 months, communal tensions have been simmering across the state, and so far, there have been at least 12 cases of unrest where 2 people have been killed while many others have been injured. And these cases have mainly arisen because of social media posts and religious processions. Indian Express's Mohamed Thaver has been writing about these cases for the paper, and he told us more about them.
So, like you mentioned, there are 2 aspects to it. One is the social media posts that are leading to police cases and arrests, and one is about religious processions. So let's talk about the religious processions that have led to unrest. Now, majority of these religious processions, be it in Mumbai, be it in Ahmednagar, were around the Ram Navami festival, where what was happening is that, when these processions were passing by, let's say, religious places, mosques, so the allegation from the other side was that, the audio was very high and the song volume was increased, and they requested the other side to, reduce the volume, but they did not. The allegation from this side is that there was stone pelting on the procession from the other side. So in all the cases that have happened, this is the common phenomena that a religious procession is passing the religious place of another community, and it is about majoritarily the volume of the procession being high, the other side requesting them to reduce the volume, and that being the major point of dispute. And then the other side saying ki, they were attacked, stones were pelted on the procession, which has then led to communal violence.
And tensions like these have not just happened in places like Maharashtra, but also in other parts of the country like West Bengal, Madhya Pradesh, and Bihar.
So that is a common thread that unfortunately seems to be repeating itself every year around Ram Navami. Now, coming to the other issue, which is the issue of social media posts. Now, to understand that, we need to go back slightly. So, when the Mahavikas Aghadi government was falling last year, one of the last decisions that they took was to rename Aurangabad as Chhatrapati Sambhaji Nagar. To change the name of a place, you need permission from the central government, which happened in February this year, where officially Aurangabad, which was named after the 17th century Mughal ruler Aurangzeb, the name was changed to Chhatrapati Sambhaji Nagar, who's the son of Shivaji Maharaj. Now, soon after that, like this happened in February, in March, one of the first few cases in Kolhapur, where 2 youngsters have put up photographs of Aurangzeb, and usually it is accompanied by a comment which makes comparison between Aurangzeb and Shivaji Maharaj. And you have to understand that these 2 historical figures also were rivals at one point of time. So what has been happening is, like in Kolhapur, so these youngsters, like in this case, one was 19 years old, one was 23 years old. Both of them, either they themselves upload a photo of Aurangzeb or they share a photo that somebody has posted, and there will be comparison being made or some disrespectful comment that will be added to it.
He says that this comment will then be spotted by someone linked to a local right-wing Hindu organization, who will then go to the person's house or to the police and ask them to register an FIR in the matter.
So the section that they generally use is, 295A and 153A, which basically relates to, fomenting unrest between communities along the lines of religion, caste, etc. So that is the FIR that is registered. In the Kolhapur case, what also happened is the person was arrested, and even the family alleged that they were asked to leave the village in which they were staying. Eventually they came back. Now, we saw these 2 cases happen in March. After that also, there were 1 or 2 cases in which similar social media issue was the reason behind FIR being registered. But this really escalated in June, because as per the Hindu calendar, on June 2nd, the 350th anniversary of the coronation of Shivaji was celebrated across Maharashtra. So, on that day, apparently, in certain parts of Maharashtra, like in Kolhapur and Ahmednagar, there were several cases where people had put up posts of Aurangzeb. So a lot of cops that I spoke to said that, there was a bit of anger regarding the change of name, and that kind of reflected on the coronation anniversary, where people again put these photos of Aurangzeb, making comparisons to Shivaji Maharaj. And in addition to Aurangzeb, in certain cases, there were photographs of Tipu Sultan.
And he says that Hindu organizations felt that this was deliberately being done on the day of the anniversary of Shivaji's coronation.
So in Kolhapur again, there was an FIR registered. 5 minors were booked by the police, apprehended, sent to a juvenile home. And after that, we've seen, apart from Kolhapur, in various parts of the state, like now it has become a common trend where somebody will put up a photo along with a comment or share it. Local Hindu organizations will see it, go to the police, get an FIR registered. In a lot of cases, they also have a half-day band, which means they shut down shops in that area from 9 a.m. to 12 noon. And what the cops are also saying is that, posting photo of a historical figure may not necessarily be a problem, but the fact that you are posting a photo around a time when things are communally sensitive is the reason why they are registering the FIRs. And on the other hand, the families, like for example, amongst the people who have been booked is a 14-year-old boy from Bid. He's a class 9 student. He was away for vacations. He had come to Mumbai. He had shared this photo that he saw on a social media platform. Then he's in Mumbai for school vacations. Suddenly he receives a call. He's told that, your photo is creating a lot of unrest. And, so then he put up a video apologizing for the same, but the cops still went ahead and registered an FIR against him.
When Mohammed spoke to the families of these minors, they told him that the children are not aware of the political context and that just posting a photograph could lead to tensions. And now, although the ruling BJP Shiv Sena-led government has not said anything about this, the understanding is that the police have their tacit approval to take action in these matters.
Because, a lot of these groups that are coming forward to give complaints are also in a certain sense linked to the Jan Akrosh rallies that have been taking place in the state, which also has BJP leaders participating, which is also seen as something that the government does not appear to be opposing too much. So generally, there seems to be a perception that the government in Maharashtra wants the police to take strict action in these cases.
Now the Hindu Jan Akrosh Morcha rallies that Mohammed mentioned are organized by Hindu right-wing outfits, which make allegations of widespread love jihad and demand the economic boycott of the Muslim community. And Mohammed says that rallies by them started happening around 4 months after the Eknath Shinde faction of Shiv Sena broke away from the party, joined hands with the BJP and came to power in the state.
Now you have to understand that one of the reasons that Shinde gave for breaking away from Uddhav Thackeray's Sena was the fact that they had compromised on Hindutva by joining hands with secular parties. So there was a need to burnish his Hindutva credentials. So what we saw is in July, this government comes to power, says we are the true descendants of Balasaheb Thackeray and, we are going to follow Hindutva. And since October, November, we see this phenomenon of Jan Akrosh rallies being organized by pro-Hindutva groups called Sakal Hindu Samaj. It's an amalgamation of a lot of parties, and these rallies start happening in various parts of the state, various districts, where they talk about alleged love jihad and land jihad and several such issues that they say are prevalent and, are happening on the ground.
And in line with these conspiracy theories, Mohammed says that these rallies also have a very anti-Muslim stance and witness a lot of hate speeches.
So because of which a lot of organizations wrote to the Maharashtra government, wrote to the police saying that this is leading to polarization. And if this is not stopped, Maharashtra will burn, because various parts of the district, they're saying these things after some of these rallies, like in Sangamner in Ahmednagar. Earlier this month, there was a rally after which there was violence over there. So the government had been informed, the police had been informed that you have to take action against, because there are a lot of hate speeches that are going on. Then a Kerala-based journalist also approached the Supreme Court, and after the Supreme Court asked the police what action you are taking. In fact, in one hearing, the Supreme Court also told that the state is acting impotent and they are not acting against these rallies. And so we saw that after that, there have been FIRs that are being registered, but so far the police have not arrested a single person in the state. So far the police has not stopped people with a past record of giving hate speeches to not participate. And the opposition has been alleging that these rallies are part of the state government's efforts to polarize Maharashtra for electoral gains, allegations that are being made by the opposition parties. There are organizations like the PUCL that have gone to the Supreme Court again saying that the state administration is not working against it. So a lot of people are seeing what is currently happening now in Maharashtra as a result of the polarization that has happened because of these rallies. A lot of them have been saying that, we had been warning y'all that this is going to happen, and finally it is happening.
Now, these incidents and rallies seem to be slowly changing the social environment of many of these areas. Mohammed says that in that regard, the district of Kolhapur really stands out.
Now you have to understand Kolhapur, which is towards the south of Maharashtra, is one of the most progressive districts of Maharashtra. This is a district that had Shahu Maharaj, who was known to be a very forward-thinking, progressive, secular leader, even when it comes to giving opportunities to people from all religion, people from all castes. So Kolhapur has always been considered as one of the most progressive districts, and which had hardly ever seen communal violence of this scale in the past. Now, such a district is now becoming an epicenter of these things, which is both shocking and disheartening to a lot of locals, because a lot of them that we spoke to said we have never seen such a thing happen in Kolhapur, And the first indication that polarization was happening is, there was a case where it was alleged that love jihad had taken place, and the police registered an FIR, and from there all this was happening, So Kolhapur is the perfect example of a district doing very well for itself, having no law and order issues, having no communal unrest, turning into a communal cauldron now because of the polarization that has been taking place.
And next we talk about minimum support prices, or MSP, which play a very important role for farmers and India's agrarian economy. And we are talking about them today because a few days back, the central government had announced the minimum support prices for 17 crops. But before we get to that, it's important for us to understand what exactly MSP is. And for that, we are joined by Indian Express's Udit Misra.
So, as the name suggests, these are support prices. And the idea is that when the government announces this, and for the large part, it's the union government that announces, and once in a while, you'll find state governments giving a bonus amount, 50 rupees extra or whatever. And these support prices are announced for over, 20 crops across the year. And the idea behind the support price is to tell the farmers, essentially provide them with a safety net, to tell them that if the market prices at the time of harvest are lower than what, their production costs are, instead of them facing ruin, they can sell their produce to the government. And that way they can at least be, provided some kind of minimum support, as it were. And that's one big reason why minimum support prices exist.
And this is important because relying simply on demand and supply can be very risky for farmers and can put them under a lot of economic distress. But besides providing this support, MSPs can also act as an incentive for farmers to grow or not grow certain crops. Udit explains how.
When the government announces a hike in support prices, it can also tweak the farmer or the farming behavior, because if it wants to promote pulses over, say, paddy, then it can give a higher or a greater increment to the pulses MSP. That way, incentivizing farmers to perhaps, shift their cultivation towards pulses. So these two are the main big reasons for minimum support prices. That's the role they play.
Okay, and Udit, you mentioned that this happens for some 20 odd crops. But does that mean that the government ends up buying all of these 20 crops?
No, so that is the other aspect of this. And if you go very strictly by the definition of what minimum support prices are, then you would expect that the government would provide that kind of a floor and say that it really doesn't matter how much you bring to us, we will procure that. But in reality, that doesn't really happen. In reality, what has been found is that only a few crops are procured, and they too are procured from only a few states. And so typically something like a paddy or a wheat, some pulses, cotton, those are the things that are typically procured. And again, that procurement also is limited to, say, states like Punjab, Haryana, Western Uttar Pradesh. Quite interestingly, many of those areas which actually saw farm law protests because they were the ones which were actually benefiting from MSP more than the rest of the country.
Okay, so could one say that this is a safety net, but only when the government decides to buy these crops? Because the government is not bound to do so, right?
That is absolutely true. And the main criticism of anybody against MSP is that it really doesn't matter what you announce. If you do not procure, then the MSP is zero, because the procurement is the key thing. So the safety net really exists for only few farmers, for few crops, in few states, not for everybody. And that's one of the massive criticisms against the functioning of MSP. But there is another side. Obviously, a government cannot possibly procure all the food grain that comes to it. I mean, it can on paper, but that would lead to another set of problems, starting with where to keep that stuff. And that would completely undermine even the little market-based pricing that is there.
Right, and now last week the government announced MSP for 17 crops. Could you talk about exactly what was announced?
Yeah, so roughly, again, these are the announcements for the Kharif crop. The Kharif crop is the summer crop, which is right now in play and will get harvested in November. And as many of the listeners would recall, that there's a lot of talk about what will happen to monsoon, what will be the effect of El Nino, and it's all about this Kharif crop. This is where we get a lot of our paddy, rice, and a lot of our inflation or food prices depend on what happens during the Kharif crop. So the announcement has been made for 17 crops in the Kharif season, and roughly the increments on MSPs range between 5 to 10.5%, what was announced last year. On a weighted average, a rough average, it's around 7% that the MSPs have been increased.
And would you say that 7% is a big hike compared to what we have seen in the past?
So precisely going back to the point that you made, that it's not a safety net which is for everybody. It has political power, and that is why it is so politically important. It has a political dimension. And we've seen that in the past, every time there is an election year, national general election, you'll see a spike in MSPs, because that's when you want to tell the farmers, which is a big vote bank, that we are with you and we want to take care of your prosperities. You would see across regimes, across governments, that MSPs are lower through the term and then spike closer to the election year. So one is that issue, that the populism bit kicks in. And there's always this apprehension that the governments might just go overboard and give a lot of MSP, which at one hand might help the rural distress, because India has had a long history of rural and farm distress. But we must also remember that often higher MSPs do play their role in kicking up food inflation. And India has a tendency in the last 2-3 years in particular, we've seen food inflation spiking quite remarkably. And that really pulls up the overall retail inflation. So that element is also there, that you might be populist on, or you might be trying to win over farmers in the last year, but that may end up hurting the consumers. And that trade-off is always there in policy making when it comes to MSPs.
Right, because when the government is buying a crop at a higher cost, that means it will also sell to the consumers at a higher cost. So then in what way do we see MSPs impacting the rural and the agrarian economy right now?
So, there are many different ways in which you can analyze how this hike sort of fits in. We were looking at some analysis that was done by City Research, and they found that the 7% increase is actually, if you compare it to pre-election years, the last 3 general election, you'll find that the 7% increase is actually quite modest over those increases, because say in 2008-9, the increase was over 34%. And then in 2018-19, also it was around 15%. So from that perspective, having a 7% looks like a muted increase. And if you look at it from the perspective of farmers, the data is showing that their cost of production has gone up by 6.8%, so roughly 7%. So in that sense, it sort of matches their cost of production increase. So on the whole, it appears as if this increase may not hurt farmers, but it may not also give them a massive fillip in terms of incomes or, that kind of a thing. The other way to look at it is that it's not populist at the moment, but, the caveat typically is given is that it's an election year and this is not still the last crop. There is a rabi crop, which is the winter crop, and populism can come in different shapes and forms closer to the election.
And in the end, we talk about school thefts. Government schools, especially the primary ones across Punjab, have been dealing with an increasing number of thefts over the past 2-3 years, where thieves are stealing all sorts of goods from the schools, including electronic devices, ration, and even toys. In fact, the situation has gotten so bad that the Firozpur district, which is near the Indo-Pakistan border, even collected the data of the robberies that have taken place. And according to it, the government schools in the district reported 123 incidents of thefts over the past 1.5 years. To know more about the situation, my colleague Utsa Sarmin speaks to Indian Express's Divya Gopal.
So Divya, can you first tell us how big of a problem this is? Like how widespread are these thefts?
Yeah, so in the past 3-4 years, the thefts in government schools of Punjab, they have become a major problem. Right from Ludhiana, which is very centrally located, to border districts of Firozpur and Fazilka and Taran, then coming to Doaba in Hoshiarpur, Jalandhar. There's not a single district where thefts in government schools have not happened. And this is probably because in the previous Congress government, the government schools were turned into smart schools. And a lot of costly equipment and IT gadgets such as LED screens, computers, amplifiers, all of this smart TVs, they all were given to the schools. So not only the thieves are targeting the schools for these costly equipment, what has surprised the teachers is that breaking the locks, the thieves are not leaving anything. For example, recently in a theft in a primary school, they have taken away the toys and teddy bears and balls of the pre-primary section. They have taken away the swings. They have even taken away the chair in the principal's office, and even the taps in the washroom, and even the railings outside the washroom. They are not leaving anything. And this has turned into such a major problem that teachers, they have started pasting notes outside the school that everything inside is already stolen, so please don't break any locks further, because the teachers are tired of replacing the locks and paying from their own pocket. The education department is not giving them the money even to replace the locks. So recently a teacher got the locks for 5,000 from her own pocket. And after that, she pasted a note outside at Rukna Mangla School in Firozpur that, "Dear thief, you already stolen everything. Now don't break our locks again."
And what about the security situation in these schools? Aren't there guards posted in the schools to ensure that this doesn't happen?
Yeah, so this is the major problem, that there is no provision of security guards or watchmen in the government schools of Punjab. In the entire Punjab, there are only 30 schools where right now the day security guards are there, and rest of the posts are lying vacant. And for the night watchmen, there is not even a single one in entire Punjab. The Aam Aadmi Party, after coming to power in September last year, they brought this proposal to hire security guards for daytime and night watchmen for the schools, which was also cleared by the cabinet in January this year. But the proposal has not been implemented yet on the ground, and the staff has not been hired. So yes, we can say that schools are without any security.
And Divya, do we know if the state administration is managing to replace the stolen items from the schools?
Actually, there are two kinds of equipment in the government schools. One is which the government has given and it is insured by the company. That department can replace, requesting the company that it has been stolen. But the other kind of equipment is which was donated by the community or the NRIs when the smart schools were made. So the smart schools were not only made by the government, they were made with the community participation. So the equipment which was donated by the others, it is never replaced. And even the one which was given by the education department is rarely replaced. There are hardly 10-15 cases in which the equipment has been replaced. But in the Firozpur district alone, more than 120 thefts have happened in past 1.5 years, and the department does not have any concrete data of how many thefts have happened in the entire Punjab. The data in Firozpur was collected by the district education office because the problem aggravated to such a level that every second day the theft was happening. So that is why the local DEO got the list prepared of how many schools have reported thefts. But at the state level, the department is yet to collect the data. Also, teachers get the FIRs registered at local police stations that this theft was reported in our school, but hardly they remember any case in which even the police has managed to catch the thieves or recover things. Recently, Firozpur police arrested 5 people who had stolen things from 13 schools, and they recovered laptops, computers, LED screens, gas cylinders. But yeah, out of 120 thefts, only 5 people arrested. That is nothing.
Okay, and what about the other goods that are being stolen? For example, the ration, which we know is used for the compulsory midday meal scheme, right?
Yeah, so in the case of toys and other things in the labs, teachers pay from their own pockets to get the new toys, to get the new equipment in the listening lab or whatever. But in the case of ration, thieves have also taken away sugar, food, rice, dry groceries such as besan, pulses, spices, wheat. They have taken away things from the kitchen. In one school, 120 spoons have been stolen, plates have been stolen in which the kids eat. And then also gas cylinders and cookers in which the meal is cooked, that has also been stolen. So in some cases, teachers take the help of the village sarpanch, panchayat to replace the things, and in other cases, they pay from their own pockets to get the new ration. They have reported the matter to higher authorities that this needs to be replaced. But as I said, in most cases, it is not replaced.
Okay, and Divya, until something is done about this situation, what are the teachers saying about how they will continue teaching their students?
Yeah, so I think with the smart school equipment missing, they are now saying that they will be back to basics, how they used to teach before the schools were turned into smart schools. That is books and the blackboards. That is all that is left to teach, and there are no projectors, no computers, no LEDs. So I think they were saying that they will be back to blackboard teaching, and they will not let children suffer in any case.
You were listening to 3 Things by the Indian Express. Today's show was written and produced by me, Shashank Bhargava, with help from Utsa, Sarmin, and was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it, share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Audio and write to us at podcast@indianexpress.com.